So on today's video, we're going to be talking about the different backpacking camera setups that I use. I've been now backpacking and making YouTube videos for about 10 years. The majority of today is going to be primarily focused on using a camera to shoot video of yourself versus photography. I do some photography and like taking pictures, but my primary focus is to really capture it via video. So we're going to go over 3 different setups today: my lightweight, medium weight, heavyweight, the accessories that each of those have as far as audio, tripods, how to carry them, and then we'll wrap up with some afterthoughts and accessories you may want to think about carrying when you carry a camera. So here we go with option 1. Option 1 is a camera that probably everyone has, and you may even be watching me on right now. And that's going to be your cell phone. This is your lightest weight, easiest option to use. This is an iPhone 13. Phones have really gotten way better than they were even really 4 or 5 years ago. This camera, this phone has 3 different lenses: the wide, kind of the medium, and then the telephoto. And that really allows you to get a variety of shots. I've used both a single lens cell phone and the multi-lens, and it's nice. So the cool thing, or the good thing about the cell phone, is you already have it, saves you on weight. They usually now come with tons of memory storage. The batteries are pretty good. They're getting better when it comes to image quality. They're still not great. At least not what I'm not able to get great images out of them. Okay, yes, but great, no. The features are getting better and better. The 14 I just saw released, the sensors keep getting better. The low light abilities get better. The computer processing gets better, so you're able to get more background blur or better noise reduction. So cameras in the phones are really getting better. I'll be curious to see where we are in 3 or 4 generations from now on the iPhones or even the Android phones. I mean, they're continually getting better. They're getting more and more makes sense to carry one of these than it does a different camera. They do lack a couple of problems. One, if the battery does die, you can't just swap in another one. So that's one immediate problem with your cell phone. The other problem with the cell phone is they still suffer in low light. If it's any amount of low light, like bright sun out, like right now, no problem. But if there's any amount of low light, you definitely get some of that grain, that noise. They just aren't there. The image sensor, which we'll talk about sensors as we talk through today, the image sensor is just really small and it just can't deal with that, that low light. So that's one thing. The other negative with cell phones is, I would say, is ergonomics. So when you're backpacking, sometimes your hands are wet, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot. And touch screens work great until you get them wet and you're trying to sit on the side of a mountain, swiping up and hitting things. Your hands are covered in sweat and the screen's not reacting. You can change some of that and make the volume buttons your record button, which does help a lot. But sometimes their ergonomics aren't the best. If you want to record yourself and it's cold out and you have gloves, you might as well forget about it. It's a pain in the butt trying to move the screen or click the buttons. It just doesn't work nearly as well as an actual camera with physical buttons. So that is, those are the positives and the negatives of the cell phone. A lot of people would say the negative with the cell phone is its audio quality, which I 100% agree, but I've solved that. So next on my things to talk about is cell phone, or audio with your cell phone. So this right here is a Rode microphone. It is got a little dead cat on it, which helps with the wind noise. You're always going to have wind, especially where I'm at. I'm up in the mountains, no trees around. Any amount of wind just gets picked up super bad on a phone. And this basically solves that. This is, most people are probably familiar with like the Rode Video Micro. Basically the same thing, very similar little condenser. In order to make this work, I did have to order this little piece. You'll see there's a little black piece that is stuck on. It has a iPhone jack on it, but there's this little tiny extra piece right here that sits on here, makes it an extender, and it makes it so that this microphone will then fit with a case. So I usually have some type of thin, low profile case on my phone, and what this helps with is you can actually plug it in with the wind mic on, and it doesn't interfere with your case. So this microphone makes a huge difference, especially in a windy circumstance. It is very helpful, and it weighs next to nothing. This thing is like, I don't know, 2 ounces, doesn't weigh much. So that's the second piece of a camera system. In my mind, a camera system is always the camera, audio, and a tripod. And I've struggled and tried to find the perfect solution for a tripod. And this is probably the best solution I found, keeping in the theme of overall lightweightness. Yes, you could put a cell phone on a big, heavy 4-pound tripod, but that kind of defeats the purpose then. So if you're trying to keep extra lightweight with a cell phone, highly recommend this. This is the UltraPod is very, very small, and it just has one of these generic clamps that you put the cell phone on. So it is a very simple system. You put that there, you tighten down this knob, you take your cell phone, you take your little extender thing, you plug it in here, and then look, I've got my little vloggy system here. I can vlog and talk. And this works really good. I try to use the front lens as much as possible on these cameras. The forward-facing ones, the ones you typically do like FaceTime with, those are okay, but the image quality does degrade, especially if it's dark out. These little cameras are really bad in the dark. These are definitely better. So a lot of times I actually have it like this, or I guess you can see it like this, face towards myself, which that is another negative with the camera. There's not two screens. So if you face it like this to get the better image quality, you then can't see yourself on the screen. So that's a little bit of a negative with the camera like that. So you might be saying to yourself like, okay, Kyle, that's cool. You got a little tiny tripod like this. It's got a piece of foam or a piece of Velcro that unfurls, and you got this little tiny tripod like this big. You might go, okay, Kyle, that's great. I want a tripod that's more than 2 inches off the ground. How do I do that? And that's where this comes in. So you got your hiking pole with you, right? And that's where this Velcro comes in. And this is really a pretty good system. It's a little fiddly. I can say that's a negative, but this is a really lightweight system that costs you basically no weight, and this is pretty solid. You put this on like this, you take your camera and you kind of got to maneuver it around a little bit. There you go. And this, with the tip, if you shove this into the dirt, and you find you got to kind of mess with this a little bit on trail, you got to find the right type of dirt and make sure it's not rocky, but you can plug this in. This little bit of extra weight here, as long as you've got it plugged in good, it won't fall over, and you can get walk away shots. You can plug this into the dirt and interview yourself where it's not the camera just pointed on the ground, but it's actually like eye level, faced right at you. So this is a really good system. It's really, really light. If you think about it, that really the only weight you're bringing is this little tripod and the microphone. You're really only bringing 4 or 5 ounces of extra weight past your cell phone, which you would probably bring anyway. So very, very light system. Very inexpensive. This little UltraPod is probably like 25, 30 bucks. And this is a little bit more expensive. I think these are like 50 or 60 bucks. The Rode mic for the iPhone. They make these specifically for the iPhone. I don't know if they have a USB-C one that would go in an Android, but they do make these for the iPhone. Works really, really good. There is one negative with this UltraPod, is it's a bit weak in that it doesn't, the joints tend to rotate poorly. Like if you put some weight on this, it goes like this, no matter how hard you tighten this down. So what I did to solve that, you can see, what I did to solve that is I put tape. I took the little ball joint and I just wrapped it in Leacopold tape. I did this on the trail one day, just kind of came up with the idea. And so I disassembled the tripod, wrapped the little ball head, the little extra joint in tape, and that little bit of tape adds some friction into the system and really allows you that when you go down on the when you lock it down, it's not going to move nearly as much. I mean, I can still bend this with my finger, but it's got way, way, way more friction, so it works a lot better. So that's my lightweight system. The iPhone or other phone you would already have. You add in this to prevent wind noise, the Rode mic, and gives you a little bit better audio quality. And then you got a super lightweight tripod you can use in conjunction with your hiking stick. And this is really a great system. You can film in 4K, get good audio, and get a lot of good shots. Let's talk about my medium weight option. If you want to step it up a bit, spend a little bit of extra money, carry a little bit of extra weight, but have a pretty big jump in image quality, performance, usability, battery ability, all of that. Let's talk about my medium weight setup. So my medium weight setup, what I've been using quite a bit of lately, is called the Sony Zv1. So this is a little tiny point and shoot camera, kind of a vlogger camera. And it is great. Very lightweight, very small. A couple of great advantages with this is, one, it has a flip out screen. So it also turns on when you turn the flip out screen on. So that works really, really good. If you're like this, you want to see yourself, you can see yourself, which is very helpful. It turns off when you put the screen back in. It also has a couple of buttons on top. The only buttons you're really ever going to use, in my opinion, are on and record. The record button is nice and big. You can get to that record button with gloves, which is a huge advantage to this over a cell phone, is having buttons, flipping the screen out with even light or even kind of medium weight gloves on in the winter. You can hit record, flip the screen out, and use the camera. So big advantage there. The other advantage to this is it has a 1-inch sensor, which is I think twice, maybe like 2.5 times the size of a camera image sensor in a camera. This has a pretty big aperture. It's a 1.8 aperture, so you get decent background blur, nothing amazing, but some amount of depth of field. It records in 4K, has great image quality. I really like the Sony look to it because you get just a different look of saturation vibe with this, and you can tell it's not a cell phone. It doesn't have that iPhone look, feel, color to it, and you really get some of the great colors out of Sony. So I love this little camera. It's lightweight, it's portable. Some of the negatives is, one, the batteries are very small. They are little tiny batteries, and I usually go through one a day. They're real lightweight, they're relatively inexpensive. I even bought some knockoff ones off of Amazon that work pretty good, just as good as the Sony ones as far as I can tell. So battery life, not great. It's only got one memory card in it, which isn't bad because you can always swap that out, but if that memory card goes bad, you've lost your footage. What's the other thing I don't like about this? I wish the batteries were a little bit bigger, and I wish the lens was a little bit wider. So it's an equivalent of a 24-70 in full frame camera land, and I always just want just a little bit wider. It always feels just a little crunch. There's a little microscopic crop in 4K, and you always just want it a little bit wider, especially when you're outside trying to show the mountains. You're always just wanting just a little bit wider lens. So other than that, though, it's pretty good. Low light, works great. You can attach the light up here, a lume cube that I use on the hot shoe mount. So really, overall, it's got a lot more good than it has negative. For audio, it comes with an included little wind shoe that you can clip over on the hot shoe, and it goes over the speaker, which is on top of the camera. I don't really use that. I mainly use this little shotgun mic. It works better in wind, I've found, and is inexpensive. This is called the Saramonic. And I got this on Amazon. I think they're like $30, which seems kind of expensive for this little thing, but it works decently well. It's a lot less expensive than a professional, bigger end mic, and it's relatively small. You can put it right here. It plugs in the 3.5 millimeter on the side. And the nice thing is you can turn it towards you or towards your people if you're filming people or filming yourself. And so you can easily switch it back and forth, and it's relatively small. It doesn't take up a lot of weight. So audio is pretty good. Quality is good. The wind little mic that comes with it, it works pretty well. One of the biggest things that I had trouble with that size camera was finding a tripod that worked right. And I think I finally found like the perfect solution, maybe the perfect backpacking tripod. You can use this with a full big size camera. It's a little tippy, but I mainly use this with that Sony Zv1. I would use it up to maybe an APS-C, a crop sensor. You could probably use that. But this is I love this tripod. It only has one negative, which I'll talk about, but it's awesome. This is called the Oben. There's a couple of companies that make these. You can find them on Amazon, and they all seem to be the same thing, just with different labels on it. I don't think these companies truly exist. They just have different names. Probably one factory makes them all. It's really, really good quality. Surprisingly good. My tripod you'll see next is $500, and I feel like this is every bit as good. It's all aluminum. It's all carbon fiber. It comes with a really pretty solid ball head. It comes with an Arca Swiss. It may not come with this plate. No, I think it does. It comes with the Arca Swiss plate, which is kind of the standard for ball heads. The only negative with this, there's two negatives. One, it's short, which isn't bad. That's all the longer the leg goes. It's actually meant to be like a desktop tripod, so you can do video conferences with it or something, but I think it works great for backpacking. The negative is it's a little short. There's no extending column in the middle. It's just 3 legs, and it goes to about, 2 feet or so. But that's really all you're going to use. 90% of the time backpacking, I'm setting up a shot and then walking away from the camera, or having it sit and look at something, or I'm sitting on the ground and I'm talking to the camera like we are right now, which when I sit down, it extends to pretty much the exact height I need it to be at. So I don't really need one that's 5 feet tall or something. This little short size does it. If you're in snow or ice and it's sliding around, you take these little rubber feet off, and they has a substantial little metal spike at the end that you can really plug it into the dirt or ground or whatever. So it works really, really good. You can make it go super low. This tripod, you can move these little latches, and it'll go flat to the ground. I don't know if you can tell, but that is flat. It'll extend And there's one intermediate position, so you can get it, you need it to go wide. If you want this to go taller, there is a option. So this is pretty cool with this tripod, is you take the head, you unscrew it, and what I typically do is I leave it in this normal configuration throughout the day. When I get to camp, and I'm like fishing around a lake or something and I want a little bit more height, I screw this on. This is an extension, comes with it, and it gives it another like 2.5 feet of length, making it pretty much a full-size tripod. And with this small camera, that extended the legs out. It's stable enough. You gotta be careful on high wind. I did have it fall over once, but it's stable enough. I put this piece of red tape on here so I didn't lose this just flop around. But it works surprisingly well. One thing I didn't like about it that I fixed, the threads in the bottom of this is a little, there's a coupler. It goes from a bigger thread to a smaller, and I'm only ever going to use the smaller. So I took some Loctite and I screwed these little connectors in so they don't fall out, because I don't want those getting lost while I'm out backpacking. That would be really bad. So quick tip there. But overall, I love, love, love this tripod. The one negative with it, if there is a negative, is how I normally carry a tripod, and I've been doing this for years, is I usually loosen these up, and then I sling it through. If this is my backpacking strap, I sling it through and it hangs down by my waist. And this one's really small and lightweight, and I don't even really notice it. It kind of maybe hits you in the butt a little bit. If you're scrambling up something, it might drag a little bit, but it's plenty durable. It's aluminum and carbon. So that's how I typically carry it. It works great, and then you can whip it right out. It's a quick way of getting to your tripod. It takes really no time at all. The negative with that, there is one negative on this. These legs, they screw in, right? They have these aluminum screws. And what has happened to me once, and this happened to me at Ray Lakes on the first day, and I was so depressed, is that by rubbing on my pant, you know, it kind of rubs on your leg maybe a little bit or bumps into stuff. These caps have the potential to naturally unscrew themselves. And when they do, this leg will just fly straight out. And it got lost. I lost a leg on the trail. I spent like another hour and a half walking back the trail trying to find it, but it's basically a black stick. It's kind of hard to find. So anyways, that's the one negative with this tripod, is that it doesn't have the flick lock, it has a screw lock. So every time before I sling this over my shoulder, I'm really cranking these legs down and making sure that it is really, really solid, because you can lose them. But other than that, great tripod, works great, weighs almost next to nothing. It's very light. So the final thing is, how do I carry this? I've used the Peak Design clip a lot for a lot of cameras, but what I find best with this size camera is a little tiny fanny pack. This is what I've been mainly carrying this year, is this little camera pack. I don't even know where I got this. It says 4 clays on it. I don't know. It's very lightweight. This weighs like 2 ounces. It's got one zipper. It's like a clamshell. I think I got it on Amazon. It was like $10. It was very expensive. This feels very, very cheap, but it's held up fine. The zipper's good. You don't need much. But the nice thing about this is I just put it right in the fanny pack area, buckle my hip belt underneath of it. It never flops down, and it's super fast to get to the camera. It takes no time at all. You just take it out, throw it in here, zip it closed. And the nice thing about this camera is not weather sealed. It's not water resistant. Your phone is water resistant. My bigger camera, we'll talk about here in a second, is water resistant, or weather sealed, they say. This is not. So if it's slightly sprinkling, there's dust, sand, dirt, all that type of stuff, this camera's a little bit more delicate, I would say. And you put it in here and it's perfectly fine. So it's basically sealed from everything, from dust to a light rain. If it's pouring, I'll put it in the backpack. But it fits great, fits right in here. And then I can also, it's got enough room in this little fanny pack to carry some snacks or other small stuff that may not fit in my hip belts. So that's the way I carry it, and that's what I've been doing. And then you also have a little pack. When you get to camp, I'll put the camera in, I'll put my little tackle box in here, and then I'll go scout around the lake carrying the tripod through this webbing. So you kind of have like a little fishing day pack that you can then go around the lake, and you got all your fishing gear fits in here along with your camera, along with your tripod and your fishing pole. So you got everything you need in a small little lightweight package. You don't have to carry your big backpack with you. So that is a really big advantage. So I've been using the Sony Zv1 now for about seven videos, maybe last 6 or 7 or so. I've used it and really, really liking the camera. It's relatively inexpensive in the realm of cameras. I think you can find them for about $750, $800. You look close for a used one. I might even get a little bit less expensive on eBay. So again, more expense, more weight, more complications than carrying a cell phone. But I think the overall weight penalty, if you're trying to make videos like I do, it's a good way to step up one notch, spend a little extra money, get a little bit better quality, and go from there. All right, let's talk about the heavyweight system. This is by far and away the most expensive, heaviest weight, best image quality, and the most weight and biggest system I'd ever want to take backpacking. I took this camera and the tripod from my medium weight setup actually, and I took this to Ray Lakes. Had a couple other videos I did last year. One of the ones in Henry Co. I think I bought this. So I've used this a couple of times. I use this mainly like for kind of family videos or taking pictures of the dog. It has the best image quality. It's got the most versatility, but it is the heaviest and by far and away the most expensive. So without further ado, this is the big boy. This is the Sony A7sIII full frame digital mirrorless camera. This is a hefty professional grade camera. People use these very often in wedding videography. People make budget cinema movies with these types of cameras. But this uses a full frame sensor. So by full frame, I mean it's the same size as old school 35mm film. And that sensor is like, I don't know, 6 times, 7 times as large as the one in my Sony Zv1. It's a much larger sensor and many, many times larger than the sensor in the cell phone. So your depth of field, your dynamic range, your low light capability is just in a next realm of image quality when it comes to that. The Sony A7sIII is specifically really geared towards video, as some of other Sony's cameras are more of kind of like a hybrid camera or focus more specifically on really high resolution photography. But this one is specifically made and kind of garnered towards the video world. So those are a lot of the positives. The other positive too compared to the other systems is the ability to change lenses. So this lens can pop off, and I can change this out with a myriad of options. There's all kinds of things that Sony produces that and third parties produce as far as lenses. So you can get wide angle, medium, telephoto, prime, wide aperture, all kinds of selection out there. Let's talk about lenses real quick. So typically with lenses on this camera for backpacking, the main lens I used for a long time was the 24-70 Sony 24-70 f4. As an older lens, it had image stabilization, which was kind of meh. The image quality was pretty good, but not great. I did upgrade that to what this is on right now. So this is the Sony 24-105 G f4. This is a big, hefty lens. 105 millimeters is pretty far, but this really is a great lens that at 24 millimeters, it's wide, especially on this full frame body. 24 is pretty wide without going to the kind of almost fisheye realm. So it's pretty wide. 105 allows you to really zoom in. So you see wildlife, you want to get like a close-up of a flower, something like that, you can do that. That is super helpful. A lot of times with flowers too, I'll shoot that, and this can do 4K 120, so you can slow it down. So you can actually, like if this is a flower right here, you can kind of pan around it like this. And when you do that, and then you slow it and you shoot it in slow-mo and you play it back, it'll look like you have it on a gimbal, and the flower's waving all like this, and the bee is landing on it all cinematic looking. And you can do some really cool stuff with this setup. This is great for photos too. The dynamic range, the bokeh, the background blur is awesome with the full frame. Plus this f4 is pretty good for that. So really a great camera. I've never used a 2.8 lens like one of the pro level lenses. Those are even a third heavier than this lens and at least double the price. So I've never used one of those backpacking, but this is a big boy right here. The other thing with lenses is the other lens I have used. So I've used 3 lenses: the 24-70 f4, that 24-105, and then this is the other one that I used for a while. I tried to shoot with just this because I thought maybe I'll just use a prime and see how it does. This is a 20mm f1.8. So 1.8 is a pretty wide aperture. 20mm is pretty wide. If you look at it like on an iPhone, your iPhone camera is a 24 and your wide angle is like a 16. So this kind of sits a little bit in the middle. So it's pretty wide, but you can get it close enough that you can get pretty good shots, and it's got really good minimal focusing distance. So you can get pretty close to objects and get close-ups and stuff. Forget about trying to shoot wildlife or zoom or anything like that. Not good at that. it is really good in low light. Like, this is a low light beast. You can open up that aperture really wide. The background blurs out super great, and you can do astrophotography with it, so you can get really wide shots of the sky. You can do a time lapse with it, that kind of stuff. So great lens. I've never carried both of these lenses backpacking, but I have carried this when I did a trip with Joe last year, and was able to get some astro shots and some really good nighttime shots around the campfire. So that brings us to some of the negatives. So the biggest negative with this is cost. This is I don't know what the cost is. Let's say $3,000 plus system. It's very expensive. I don't want to add up how much I spent on this thing, but very expensive. The batteries are expensive. The memory cards are expensive. The lenses are expensive. Everything is very expensive, and it gives you the if you want that last 10%, 15, 20% better image quality than what you get on the Sony Zv1 or kind of even a crop sensor DSLR, like this does it. This is the system. So that's the one negative, is cost. Second is, which is huge in backpacking, is the weight. This is heavy. I mean, you might not think like, oh, lifting a 4-pound weight, that's nothing. I can do curls with 25. Well, carrying this, all day, every day, it just kind of beats you up. I mean, it feels like I have this brick with me all the time. And so it's the weight, it's the cost. The battery power is awesome. The battery life lasts like forever, so that's good. The batteries are big and expensive and heavy, but it does last forever. But the negatives really come down to the weight and the size, and that's it, and the cost. Those are your three negatives. In the theme of good, bad, so those are the good, the bad. The audio of this system, what I've been using, there are other options, there are many options. You could attach all kinds of different external mics to this thing, but what I mainly use is the Rode Video Micro. That's what you'll see up here. I usually leave this on all the time. I never take it off. The internal mics are okay, but not the best. But this has got great wind noise. It's got great, if you got to interview a couple people, you got to shoot like this, it works really, really good with that. So the audio is awesome. So next up, we talk about the camera, we talk about the audio. The final thing is, how do you actually take video with it? So it will fit on the Oben pod that I showed you on my medium weight setup, but realistically, this is a much more stout option and really feels much more supported. Although you can put it on the Oben, it always feels like it's gonna you're always, oh, is it gonna fall over? Is the wind gonna get it? Is it gonna fall over? The head will support it, the legs will support it, but it's always a little bit too much camera, I feel like, for that tripod. So this is the Peak Design Travel Tripod in carbon fiber. This is a great, great tripod. I've used this for a couple years now as part of their Kickstarter. I've always liked Peak Design stuff. This is a great tripod. The nice thing about it is it does deploy really quickly, which is nice. You can take this, you kind of open all the legs up, and then you pull it, and all the legs come out, and then you can kind of like rotate through and clamp all the clamps closed. So it sets up really quickly compared to ones that you have to use like twist handles. I do like lever locks like this. It works really good. It's relatively lightweight for a tripod of this size. It will get, when the column is extended, pretty much up to eye level, so it's definitely very tall too. On trail, 90% of the time, I'm really only maybe extending one leg segment, and then using that for walk-away shots or for interviews while I'm sitting on the ground. So most of the time, I'm not using the full height unless I'm doing shots around like a lake with me fishing or some walk-away shots. But it works really good. It's got this nice, cool center column design, pops right up. The camera just simply clips right into here. It's got an Arca Swiss plate. Then you twist this and it's solid. And this is a very, very solid system. Works really great. It's definitely very good. Again, because you have a big, heavy camera, you need a big, heavy tripod. The big, heavy tripod is very expensive. So this is like 500 bucks again. So everything is expensive when you get to bigger cameras, but it definitely supplies a much better, more stable platform with unlimited range options, and you can put it on any surface. Whereas when we were talking about with the cell phone, using the trekking pole, there's a compromise, right? You can't put it in any surface, only certain surfaces. So this is the big boy tripod to be using when you need to. And this does work that same kind of way that you carry the tripod with the Oben, is it will sling through the strap on your backpack, and it will dangle down by your waist. You're going to notice it. You're definitely going to notice this hanging off the side of your strap on your backpack and you're going to feel a little bit lopsided, you could put it in a water bottle pocket, sure, easy enough, but you're going to have to take your pack off and grab it and fiddle with it. It's really easier just to sling it over the strap and just deal with the weight. But great setup there. The final part to this is, okay, so that's how you carry the tripod. That's what you do for the audio and the lenses. How do you carry the camera itself? And I've been using this. This is the Peak Designs capture clip. Pretty common. You've probably seen it, other people using it, but it is a great clip. It goes right here on your shoulder strap, and then you're able to take your camera and easily click it in. So, you know, imagine this is on my shoulder strap, and then this just clicks in right onto the clip, like that. Clips on to the bottom, onto the tripod plate, and then to take it off, there's a button. So you just push this button right here, and then it pulls right off. So very secure. Well, definitely locks right in. I've used the capture clip now for, I think since it first came out on Kickstarter. That was probably 7 or 8 years ago. And I use that a lot with the camera I first really started doing videos with, which was a crop censored DSLR called a Nikon D5500. And it was about half the weight of that camera and lens combo. And it was definitely much more comfortable having on this capture clip. Wearing the capture clip with that lens, it will you will feel it. After several hours, you're going to be a little lopsided because you've got the tripod slung over your shoulder strap. You've got the Sony here, so you're kind of walking. You feel a little bit like you're walking sideways down the trail. But in the search for best image quality, sometimes you gotta take those hits. So that is my heavyweight setup. It's got the best image quality, the best stability, the best able to position on any ground, best audio, best range of lenses, but it also has those negatives of weight, cost, size, all of those things. Okay, finally, let's talk about some accessories. We'll start off with a secondary camera. So if you want to carry a secondary camera, I typically carry a GoPro. This is a Hero 9. I've had a Hero 4. GoPros are great. They're waterproof, shockproof, have pretty decent video capabilities, and they keep getting better every year. They come out with a new model every year. It gets better and better. I've had some freezing problems with this one, which annoys me, but overall, they're pretty good cameras. They work great, especially if you're going to be around the water or if you know it's going to rain. So I always carry this if we're doing a canoe trip, or if I know if forecast says, hey, there's going to be a whole day or two of rain. I don't want to have one of my other cameras out that isn't waterproof, so I'm going to use this. So these are great. The image stabilization too on these is just insane. It's crazy how stable they can keep the footage. So these work great on the boat. I've used this on the pack raft. Used this mountain biking before. Like they're cool cameras. They suffer from having a small image sensor, but they are nice as an addition to. I wouldn't ever use this as my main camera because the audio quality is kind of meh and the video is not the best. I'd rather just use my cell phone. But as a secondary camera, it works great. What I typically do is I have it on this clippy mount. So this is a little alligator clippy mount, and I've got it on like a longer kind of U-shaped bracket. And when I have this out, most of the time it's going to ride in my backpack. But when I do have it out or I need it, I simply clip it to my sternum strap. So a little alligator clips on here, and then I can pull it out real quick, selfie video of me, dog, whatever, and clip it back on. I almost always have this little foamy thing on it. It's not for flotation, it's for wind. GoPros are pretty bad at canceling wind, and this little like $5 foam thing has really helped with that. But underneath this GoPro Hero 9, good system. The battery life is okay, not the best. You can fit some pretty good sized memory cards in here, so I usually only bring one memory card for it. But good camera if you're doing more action stuff, more stuff in the water, or you want a secondary one to anything that I went over. The other puzzle or other question I get a lot of questions on sometimes, or I've seen a lot of questions, is batteries. So on my Sony Zv1, I go through about 1 to 1.5 batteries per day, just at normal filming level. The A7sIII, one battery will last 2 days easily, sometimes more. The GoPro, if you're using it a lot, like on a canoe trip, I'll use the GoPro a lot, so I'll probably do a battery a day. And then the cell phone can go about 2 days without needing to recharge, maybe 3, depending on how much you're using it for, like listening to podcasts or maps and stuff like that. So about 2 days maybe on that. So typically I bring one brick. I'll bring a 10,000 milliamp anchor brick, and then I'll bring a couple of extra batteries. So the Sony Zv1 batteries are real small. I keep them in this little case, and then I keep them in here. This is like my little accessories pouch that I use. It's brightly colored. You can easily see it. I made it myself. I keep a lens cloth, little lens cleaner thing in this little thing so I can clean off my lenses, my sunglasses. I also keep a mount like this for the GoPro. This is Arca Swiss plate, so normal tripod plate mixed with a little GoPro head. And this is good that you can put it on a tripod and you can then use the tripod like a big selfie stick, or you can use this for time lapses. And that's what I typically use my GoPro for, is time lapse. So you can put this on the, unscrew the GoPro from the clippy thing, put this on your tripod, go set the tripod somewhere, and you get a really great time lapse. So I usually keep this with me, it doesn't weigh much. And then also inside of here I'll keep a couple of SD cards. Whatever's recommended for the camera is what I'm carrying, but I tend to bring way more SD cards than what I typically need. You really don't need that many. Another little accessory to talk about with the GoPro is this. I don't know how you can see it because it's covered in mud, but right here, this is a little aluminum plate. I think I found it on Amazon, and then I zip tied it to the end of my hiking pole. So this makes a great selfie stick. You can take the GoPro, screw it into this mount, and then hold it way out there, and you can get a really cool selfie thing. So if you're crossing like a river, I think that's when I typically have used that, or you're on top of a mountain or something, you want a really cool selfie stick type thing. It's really nice. It can get further out and is really stable compared to a tripod. So this is a great way of using that. Another accessory to mention that I actually can't show you right now because I'm using it to light me right now is called the Lume Cube. So I use, I think, the Lume Cube Mini. It's a little LED panel full of lights. It's got a little softbox filter over it. It's the only light I actually own for video production, but it casts a nice little glow on me and is able to give me some light here in my dark office. So Lume Cube Mini, I typically don't bring it backpacking necessarily unless it's like going to be dark out, maybe early season. It gets dark early. I want to do a bunch of interview stuff around the fire. But for the canoe trips where you're sitting around the fire or chilling for a long period of time, it really lights up the scene. It's super helpful in giving you a little bit better video quality, especially when it gets dark at night. And using that Lume Cube allows me to then use a smaller camera, smaller lenses, because I have an external light source and I don't need quite a good camera at low light. So Lume Cube is definitely another addition or accessory you could bring. It's pretty lightweight, pretty small, and it fits directly into the hot shoe on the top of the Sony Zv1. So it's a great little compact system. So you might be asking, okay, Kyle, that sounds great. Tons of information. Thanks a lot. What are you typically bringing? So typically now, most of my videos, the past 4 or 5, have all been shot on my medium weight setup. I think that's working really well, and I like using that setup. It works nicely, and it's a good balance between the heavy weight, cost, expense, all those types of things. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching. Till next time.